welcome to Cosmic Connections. I am here with Christopher Pridham and Ethan Tang. We're going to be talking about relocation astrology. Ethan is new to the podcast here, but he is in classes right now to study vibrational astrology. He's almost finished with his courses. So welcome, Ethan. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you too. I always like to hear what other vibrational astrologers talk about and how they view astrology. And I'm really interested in hearing about your take on relocation astrology and hearing how you pick up on it. For anybody that is interested in seeking out Ethan, he does relocation astrology sessions, and I will link to his Fiverr account because that's what he uses, the platform he uses to in the description. So if you want to check him out, if you're interested in that type of session, you can check him out on in that place. So cool. So Ethan, actually, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before we dig into the astrology, like your background and what brought you to VA?
Yeah. I'm currently a student of David Cochran, founder of Vibrational Astrology, and learning everything about the fundamentals and different techniques with vibrational astrology. So I'm looking forward to take all that into the real world and help people with it. So I've been learning with David for a little over a year, and we're covering a lot of different topics. We covered compatibility, forecasting, planet combinations, and now we just finished our segment on relocational astrology, and I feel especially passionate about relocational astrology because it touched on the idea of how our environment affects us. And I think I'm passionate about that idea. And I had my bachelor's in environmental studies, or just BA in environment for short, and this is kind of closest to that passion of mine of how our environment affects us, how we affect the environment, and how going into different environments affects the way our life is and the way people change.
Very good. Very good. And you find that you, with your own self and with other people that you talk to, that it seems to have a lot of relevance there. The relocation astrology, looking at the astro maps.
Yeah, what drew me to relocational astrology at first is because I actually felt the influences that David was talking about in different places. I've traveled around to different places in my life and lived in different places. So I have a little bit of experience and a little bit of exposure as to the kinds of different energies that a person can experience in different places.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something Christopher always says, is if you feel it, if you see it in your own self, then it gives it more energy. Right, Chris?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to practice what you know, not what you just theorize. So yeah, that works really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I like about relocational astrology as well is it's tangible. It's tangible because you can experience the change if you want to, whenever you want to, by just going to a new place. And once you know relocational astrology, it makes that change even more tangible. It's almost like you can see it around you. You can see those changes happening, like different people enter your life, or like you go to a new place and you get injured, or you go to a new place and people are suddenly nice to you. The changes that you experience are very tangible.
Something you can actually feel and sense. Very interesting.
Right.
Yeah, I've always felt, since I was first exposed to it in my studies with David, that it hit home really hard, because it just surprised me how much it was. And I thought it was really fascinating to look around the map. I haven't moved or lived in a lot of different places, but the few that I have, I've looked at, and it does seem relevant. And of course, I've talked about it with clients before, so it makes sense that where you live definitely has an energy to itself. And, you know, it explains the idea that you might have of when you go somewhere, it feels familiar, or when you go somewhere, it just doesn't feel like the right place for you. You know, so it kind of gives another layer to understanding why that could be, you know. Have you used relocation astrology very much, Christopher?
You know, I've used it a few times. There's been a call for it. I've used it, you know, just with my own playing around with it a little bit. Like I mentioned before, like for me, I have Venus conjunct in a conjunction in New Orleans, and I love New Orleans. Now, it is not the quote prettiest, cleanest place in the world, but I really love it, you know. And so my wife and I had gone there a few years ago. And that's what I did was I like, you know, I really like this place. And then I looked it up. I wanted to see. And there it is, like Venus running right through it. And it's like, okay, sort of like Ethan was saying, you can, when you open yourself up to the language of what astromaps can do. And what I mean by that is when you can know and see, oh, this is there, it puts words to what you feel. Because I already felt it. I really felt good. I like this was nice. And then to see, oh, it's got Venus. Oh, that makes sense. Okay. You know, and you know, I've done that for living here in Jacksonville and just seeing the dynamics that are here in Jacksonville. It's like that makes sense. And looking back at my home, you know, because I've lived in a lot of different places and we've traveled all around the world. So I like to check then. And so I'll always look to see, okay, what are they? And I typically like to do that almost afterwards. So I'm not, because I'm studying it. So I don't want to plant the seeds in it. You know, I want to just like, okay, how do I feel in this area? Do I sense anything? What do I feel? Does this make me feel anxious? Do I feel comfortable? Is my mind right? Like what's happening? And then go back and look at it in the chart and see. And so far it's been very accurate. So, I mean, it's a wonderful tool. And, you know, I had also mentioned that dealing with clients, yeah, there's one that I've been working with that they're moving to a different place because of it. So because you talk about it and for them, it was like they were going to move somewhere. And I'm like, oh, like it's Saturn. And, you know, if you were telling me you were going there to work and you were going there to do it, I would be like, absolutely great, you know. But if you're talking about retiring there, maybe you don't want Saturn running right through that spot, you know? It's like,
Right.
it might not be what you want. You might want something a lot. And then they're describing what they want to do. Oh, I want family and friends. And okay, let's maybe not do that, you know? Because it's like literally running right through it. So it's like, how about this? Have you considered this area? So what they did was the next month, they went, checked it out, and they're like, oh my God, I love that place. And there you go, you know? So yeah, I've used it some, not, you know, I don't think a lot of people really know about it. So maybe something like this will be good so people can hear and know. And, you know, with people like Ethan, who's really exploring it more and testing it. And, you know, we met Ethan, it's been a couple years almost now, back at the conference and everything. And Ethan is a very sharp, dedicated person who, you know, he's not your woo-woo kind of guy. Okay. So he's not out there. He is out there, but in a very grounded way. Okay. So he's really good. So I'm excited to hear what he's going to share and the fact that this has really excited him and everything, because I think he can, you know, really take us down new roads and really, I can imagine Ethan really getting into this, exploring it in ways that would just be really exciting and new. So I'm anxious to hear what he has to share too.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. Most definitely. So, Ethan, what is something that you really like about relocation astrology? What was like? Is there one specific thing that seemed to resonate with you more than the others, like the ascendant or the midhaven lines, or I don't know?
I think it's how much it can impact your decision making. Because I mean, when people think about a place to move, Granted that they're not trying to move to be at a certain place with family or with friends or with their partner or something. They're looking for a place to move for a purpose, like career. Relocational astrology can tell you which places would be good for that and would be not good for that, because people move to different places for different reasons. And when you do it blindly, sometimes you end up surrounded by energies that you didn't ask for. So relocational astrology just gives you that ability to pick a place that's going to be good for your purposes, for exactly what you want it to be good for. And VA's version of relocational astrology is a lot more detailed than, I guess, popular or conventional relocational astrology, because using the vibration gives you a little bit more insight into smaller places. And instead of just, oh, which places have Jupiter conjunct your ascendant or conjunct your midheaven, you have which places are ninth vibration to your ascendant or ninth vibration to your midheaven, and those are going to have their own distinct energy or feel to them. And so I'd like to get into that, and I'd like to share about how it's different. Yeah, so I guess, should I go into what relocational astrology is?
Yeah, why don't you give us a little description of it?
Yeah, I guess for people who don't know, relocational astrology is about place, like how different places highlight a different aspect or different planets in our natal chart, right? Because when we're born with a natal chart. The natal chart is a snapshot of all the planets in the sky, the positions of the planets at the time of your birth. And it's also the positions of the planets at the place of your birth, because we have the ascendant and the descendant, and then we have the midheaven and the IC, which people know as the houses, right? But the houses are based on the angles, which is the ascendant and the descendant line, which is roughly the horizon when you were born, and then the midheaven and the IC, which is based on the prime meridian, but basically, for the most part, it's just straight up and down. And then there's also another angle called the vertex, which is a completely different one, but it has just as an important of an effect as the ascendant and descendant in certain places. So because the angles at the time of our birth is based on our location, the planets are not based on our location when we're born. We can be born in the US or in Asia, and at one specific time, and the planets are still going to have the same angles to each other, like from the Earth's perspective. So aspects, zodiac signs, they're going to be the same regardless of where you're born, given that you're born at a specific time, right? But the thing is, if you're born in the US versus if you were born in China, your houses are going to be flip-flopped, right? If Jupiter was at your midheaven, was at the top of your chart, if you were born in China, if you were born at the same time in the US, Jupiter would be at the very bottom of your chart. And the thing about relocational astrology is that difference is actually there. When you go to China, say you're born in China with Jupiter at the top of your chart. If you go to the US, the energy around you would be as if Jupiter was at the very bottom of your chart. So the angles change based on the places that we go, based on where we are on Earth, and you're going to feel that energy. Granted that your natal chart is going to be your natal chart forever. Your ascendant is going to be your ascendant forever, because you were born in a specific place. But going to different places also changes the energy based on your angles. So I guess that's an overview of relocational astrology, and I guess I can demonstrate that using the chart.
Sure. Let me put your video up.
Right. So this is my chart. We can use my chart as an example. I was born, it doesn't say here, but I was born in Hong Kong, right? Well, what I can do is I can relocate my chart, make a relocated chart, and then act as if I was actually born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is where I am currently.
Mm-hmm.
And that changes the angles, the planets, the angles, the aspects between the planets remain the same. We still have this little green triangle over here, but that green triangle was originally at the bottom of my chart. Here it is in Hong Kong. That green triangle is at the bottom. But in Ann Arbor, because it's around roughly halfway around the world, the green triangle goes up to the top of my chart, right? So what really changed was the location of my ascendant, which is right now it's 10 degrees Cancer in Ann Arbor, and my MC, which is now at 17 Pisces, right? So when you relocate your chart, you're changing where the angles are relative to your planets, the planets in your natal chart. So that's how we look at relocational astrology. But there's actually a better way we can look at that, and it's called the astro map, right? And let me pull that up real quick. So this is an astro map, and these lines actually show you which places have certain planets conjunct an angle when you're there. For example, in Omaha over here, you can see that there's a yellow line saying Mars opposition, right? So that means in Omaha, Mars will be opposite my ascendant. And we can verify that that's the case. So Omaha, Nebraska, right? Let's test that out. Make a relocated chart of Omaha, Nebraska. And there we go. Mars is opposite to my ascendant. And that's going to make me, because Mars is the planet of action, right? Mars brings energy to get stuff done. So if I'm in Omaha, I'm going to feel that energy from other people. I'm going to feel that people are getting stuff done around me and people are pushing me to get stuff done. And that's going to be a pretty strong energy because it's exactly on an angle, and it's conjunct an angle.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so what relocational astrology actually does is it kind of shows you how a place can be different from what you might expect, because it's going to open up the gates for that kind of energy to come through your environment, even though it's still going to be dependent on what the place is actually like. For example, I have this moon line, and generally people around me, it's a moon conjunct opposite ascendant line. So it's moon on the descendant going through the east side of the US here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's supposed to give like a family kind of feeling. I can meet people around me and they're going to feel familiar, and I'm going to feel comfortable there. But say I'm in the middle of the ocean here and I'm on the moon line. I can't expect for people to feel like family in the middle of the ocean because there's no people around. So of course there has to be people around you and things in your environment that are available at a certain place to bring those energies towards you as vessels for those energies to come into your life, right? So real life is a factor too, unfortunately. Not everything in the relocated chart is accessible to you, but you can look at a place, and if there's a line going through it that you like, that meets your needs or will go towards your goals, and that would be a great place for you to go.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I always ask when I talk about relocation astrology with someone, I always ask them first where, because I don't think people understand it. And so it's really good that you're giving a clear explanation of it. But I've had people say, well, where should I go? And it's not always about that. It's about, well, do you like to be by the ocean? If you do, then we want to look on the coast. Or do you like to be in the mountains? Those two totally different types of places. So it narrows it down. Do you like to be north, south? Those kinds of things weigh in. And I always ask that first, because even looking at a small area of space, you can see the differences of the energies in that place.
Right.
Yeah, so that makes sense. And so while we're looking at this chart, so just so we can explain it to other people, what are the differences between the colors of the lines, the yellow, the blue, and the red?
Right, that's a great question. So yellow represents the ascendant lines. So when a planet's aspecting the ascendant, in this case, we're only showing conjunctions and oppositions, but later on, I'll show you guys the different aspects that we can see. But the yellow ones represent a planet aspecting the ascendant, descendant. So this will be more about the actual people around you. What are people going to be like towards you? Like, what kind of interactions will you have with people? With the people around you in your vicinity, your friends, your family, right?
Mm-hmm.
The midheaven line, on the other hand, is more about your career. They say midheaven's the career angle, and that's pretty accurate because it's less personal. It's less about how you're interacting with the people in your vicinity, but more like how you're interacting with the world, right? And that's why they call it the career line. So that's more important for kind of your social standing, whether you're involved in the society around you, like say you're being involved in the city, being involved in an organization, being involved like basically career stuff and not exactly just your relationships with people. And then the vertex lines, which the vertex is more, it becomes stronger at higher latitudes at the further you are from the equator. So, for example, in Florida, the vertex line isn't going to be very strong, but the more vertical it gets, the more strong it's going to be, and the less strong the ascendant line is going to be. So, the vertex line is kind of a mix, almost a mix between the ascendant and the midheaven. It's about how you can help the people around you, how you can have kind of like a working relationship with the people around you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so we did a video with David Cochran a while back, it might have been last year, where he talked about the vertex and the importance of the vertex being at higher latitudes. I think he said it was 25 or 20. No, maybe that's not high enough. Now I can't remember. Maybe 45 or 43 or something. The latitude where it starts to kind of shift from the ascendant to the vertex in terms of importance. Right. And how what it means. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's definitely important because say you're in like Scandinavia, like the ascendant like the ascendant moves around really quick, and it becomes impossible to actually use the ascendant in those places. But that's where the vertex is actually very stable. But like say you're close to the equator, the vertex pretty much just stays in one spot. So that at close to the equator, the vertex is unusable too. So by using the vertex and the ascendant, we're accommodating for people of all latitudes. But that's besides the point. And if you want to know the technicalities, you can go to David's videos because best for that.
He definitely has done at least one, if not a few, on the vertex just of itself. So that's something to think about.
Right.
Yeah. So tell us some anecdotes that you have with using this and how it was, something that struck you as important.
Right. Yeah, I'll get to some anecdotes, but I guess I just zoomed in to Michigan, but I think it might look really confusing right now because of all the lines, but I think that's the beauty of relocational astrology from a VA perspective, because now we have midpoints, which are super important, and you'd be remiss to not include them when looking for places using relocational astrology, because midpoints, each of the different midpoints adds a specific influence to a person. Like, and I'll get to those influences later. But not only midpoints, but we have smaller aspects to our angles as well. For example, we got the semi-square and semi-sextiles, which those actually cover a very small area, so we wouldn't look at those as much as, say, a nine vibration aspect, or a square aspect, or a trine aspect, as you may know, or a sextile, right, which is represented by this these symbols here. So there are different aspects that can happen in each place, and each one's going to have a different flavor. So I guess there's I'd like to demonstrate by talking about Australia. When I was in high school, I made a trip to Melbourne, Australia, because we had family there. And I think it's a really good demonstration of a midpoint. Oops, too many aspects. So we have to look at the right level of detail. So you can see that there are many lines going through Melbourne, but what I'm looking at specifically is a Mercury-Venus line. We were going just for vacation. I was there for a few months to visit family, but there was a Mercury-Venus midpoint opposite to my MC, right? So Mercury-Venus, what's Mercury-Venus? Mercury is about connecting information, and Venus is about anything that's attractive, anything that draws you, anything that's good to see or good to feel. Like Venus represents anything that a lot of things that you like, right, in life. And that's why people say Venus is the planet of romance and the planet of beauty and money. Even though it's not exactly those things are very Venusian because we like them and we're attracted to them. So what happens when we have Mercury Venus? Mercury Venus midpoint, it's like learning or communications or knowledge that is attractive, or information that is fun to learn about. And the one thing, the most memorable aspect of this vacation that I had in Melbourne was that I went to this museum, the Natural History Museum, and I enjoyed it so much the first day that I went 4 times in a row. For 4 days during this trip, I went to the museum. And that's just super fitting. Obviously, back then I didn't know about this stuff, but Mercury Venus, kind of the pleasure of learning or enjoyable information, is so perfectly embodied in this museum that I went to and that I enjoyed so much. So I think it speaks to the power of midpoints, because say we looked at Melbourne with the basic map, only conjunctions and oppositions. There's nothing going on in Melbourne.
Right.
There's nothing going on if we just look at planets conjunct or opposition, the angles. But if we look from a VA perspective and we say, okay, midpoints are actually really important. The minor aspects are actually not that minor. They're actually really important too. Then we see all these other aspects and the midpoint that I actually did experience, that I experienced pretty strongly, and that it was actually the highlight, represented the highlight of my trip. Right. So I guess I can go into other anecdotes.
Wait a minute, what else did you have? So you had the Venus and Mercury conjunction right there, and then what else did you have? What else is that on the right?
On the right?
Right, going directly through Melbourne. What one's that?
Oh, that's like a Mercury semi-sextile.
Oh,
semi-sextile.
Mercury. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, that adds to it too.
right, for
Yeah,
sure.
because your Mercury is very active there. So the
Hmm.
mind is going to definitely be on overdrive. I mean, it's really
Right.
hyped up. And then with the Venus, yeah, that gives the attraction there. And yeah, you got like mesmerized or extremely attracted to that
Hmm.
museum. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah,
That would
you're
make
right. That yeah, these semi-sextiles, the Mercury semi-sextile and Venus semi-sextiles could be. David said that they're super small aspects, so it would be a certain area of the city that you would
Well, that
experience
one's
those
going dead
types.
through it, but
Right.
it's still gonna be, for me, what I find in a lot of these, it's
Yeah.
not that dissimilar than the way people affect you. If
Hmm.
you're in a relationship with someone, you're dealing with a whole chart that's hitting you. And
Yeah.
really what we're looking at is we're looking at, I mean, what is a human being but a piece of earth, right? That's moving
Hmm.
around. And what are we looking at here? We're looking at earth that we're moving around on. Okay. So it's the
Yeah.
same concepts is really what you're ultimately going to deal with is how does this person affect me? And you can see that chart wise. And we're looking at how a piece of land affects me. I mean, really, I mean, yes, there's a difference, but when you deal energetically, there's almost not a there's not necessarily a massive difference between a piece of land and a human being. They're both earth, that's infused with energy. That's what they
Right.
are. So yeah, you're really almost like this becomes almost like a natal chart to the place. It's not because we don't have the birth date of a place, but we do have this, which
Hmm.
yeah, it's good. It
Right.
works. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
And the special thing is that it's different for everyone, which
Oh,
is
absolutely.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy to think about because you could go I could go to Melbourne, Australia with a friend, and they're gonna have a completely different experience. We're
Oh,
gonna do the We
absolutely.
might do the same thing, but it's gonna affect them a lot
Oh,
more
absolutely.
differently compared to
I've
how it
done
affects
that.
me.
I've
Hmm.
had those experiences where you can be with someone and you just think this is the most incredible experience, and they're like, eh. Like,
Right.
what the hell? We both were there, man. Did you not see that? Did you not experience that? Nope. And it just hit them differently. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the things that I think is good to also explain to people so they understand, the lines are obviously they're the exact point of
Hmm.
whatever aspect we're talking about. And there
Right.
is like in other maps, you can see like a shaded area. For instance, it's the
Hmm.
strongest where the line is, and then it goes out. But what I think you were saying, Ethan, with the semi-sextiles is that shaded area is like small. It's not very, very broad. But
Right.
things such as a midpoint or a conjunction would be more of there you go, more space that you
Yeah.
would see. I think that's good for people to know to kind of understand because there is still some influence there. It's just that what
Hmm.
is the influence? Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just put up this example of you here in Sirius. You can say, "Oh, I want education and communication." So there's like a preset uh, number of aspects and
Hmm.
different aspects that David thinks is relevant to education and communication, and it shows you the orb, shows you kind of like the area of influence that this aspect would have. So it would be
Yeah, that
this
makes
whole area.
sense. Yep.
So I guess to demonstrate that point. Hmm.
Yeah, that was good because I think I've had people say to me, well, I don't understand. There's no lines at all. Well, maybe the direct line isn't hitting that spot, but there's other influences that are around you, kind of like what you were saying too, Christopher. It's not just,
Yeah.
the exact part
So
of it is
no
the
matter where, so even
influence.
no matter what,
Hmm.
wherever you go, energy's hitting you. That's a
Yeah.
guarantee. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of, like Ethan showed with some of the charts, it'll be so many lines you won't be able to make sense of it because it'll be
Hmm.
hard to see it. And so a lot of the things in astrology, especially dealing with charts, is a matter of removing stuff so you can make sense of
Yeah.
it. Otherwise, it's just too much. So it's not that it isn't there, it's just how we're able to view it through a program. That's all.
Hmm.
But there is
Hmm.
always energy lines passing through stuff. Always.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the crazy thing too, is that every single place on Earth is going to have specific energies, multiple of them, that are hitting you, whether they're the ones that you like or not. So like unlike I guess conventional relocational astrology, we can see the effects of multiple planets in each and every single place that you step into, instead of just one big line going through a few cities or this part of the earth, and nowhere on earth has that kind of influence.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So I
really
guess I'll go
what you're
into
looking for,
Mhm.
especially on vacations. It works really well on it works really well because sometimes you can't. If you're moving to where family is, or if you're moving that, okay, you're going to do that, and you know what? Usually it works out just fine. Like even if you don't know, you look at the chart later on, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But when you're taking a vacation, or if you're wanting to write, I mean, would I think that Ethan would do well if he went to Melbourne? If he said, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to, okay, yeah, that's probably great, or
Right.
that would be good. But if he's saying, oh, I just want to relax and shut my mind off, I'd be like, yeah, I wouldn't suggest that.
Mhm.
That's not going to be a place where your mind's going to shut off at all.
Right.
Let's go to some La La Land where you got a nice Neptune thing going through, or something like that, where you might be able to chill a little bit more. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing too. There are places for you for different purposes on Earth.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a
Right.
place for learning. Everyone's got a place for romance. Everyone's got a place for chilling, to start a family, to settle down. And it's kind of, the world is your oyster in the sense of like, if there's a place that you want, you can have it.
Yeah.
So I guess, should I go to other anecdotes just to drive the point home?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to the other summer, I think 2 summers ago, I went to Vancouver, Canada to visit a friend, or visit two friends because they were living there. Two of my close friends. And I landed and instantly felt a mental clarity. I landed, I was looking around me, and I felt like I was absorbing the environment around me. Like I was noticing that people walk a certain way, people make eye contact, there are these different kinds of cultures in this place, and I was looking at the people around me in a way that I felt like I was never doing before, and actually absorbing and processing what I was observing. So I guess now that I know about relocational astrology, I can understand that it was the ascendant conjunct Mercury. It's a 1-degree orb, but 1 degree for a conjunction is pretty strong.
Yeah.
So let me
That's
get
definitely
a less, or we can even do a treasure map for education and communication, because I know that'll show up. So this big line is a Mercury conjunct ascendant, and it covers Vancouver. So it makes sense that Mercury, the planet of connecting information, of basically thinking and processing information, if that's a planet that's highlighted here, then my brain would be worrying, and I'd be making all these connections of what I see and what that means, and drawing conclusions or drawing thoughts based on that. So that's an experience I had as well. So to Christopher's point, the recommendation would be that Vancouver is probably not a place for me to go to relax. But again, it's a place with a huge Mercury influence. So I'd want to go there if I wanted to study. Say I wanted to go to university again, I'd probably try to apply to UBC in Vancouver. That would be a great place.
Well, I think Washington State University over here is going to be stronger because it's dead on.
Right. That's true. Yeah. The line goes through there too.
Yeah, it goes exactly like it's dead on. So it's like, wow. Interesting. Yeah. It really is true. like I would encourage people to test it out, just
Right.
go to places, be aware of how you feel in the place, and just see what's going on. It's really, once you sort of test it out and find out, this actually works. It makes it fun to look at it then, and you can kind of see, what's going to happen. I don't look at things as bad or good. I kind of think, well, what am I trying to do there? Because it's not, oh, you have a Saturn line running through it, that's bad. No, that's dedication, man. If you need to be dedicated and really get to it, Saturn's great to run through it. It's going to keep you on task, So if it's work related, that's not a bad thing. That's a commitment line right there. So that it's good. But if you want spontaneous, fun, like exciting, yeah, having Uranus run through it that's going to be awesome, But if you want chill, relax, having Uranus run through it might not be the way to go,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it just depends on what you're looking for and what you're trying to experience. But what's some of your other stories there?
Yeah, I guess I'll talk about one more that might be very interesting. No orbs, just line, extremely detailed. So I'll be talking about where I am currently, which is Michigan. I currently live around Ann Arbor, Michigan, which has got this Pluto 7 vibe line here, the triseptile Pluto, which is pretty intense. And it would make this place not a very good place to be, even though it's brought a lot of internal changes in my life, because 7 vibe is very internal, as Chris pointed out earlier, right? And then Pluto is like this kind of, people would describe it as karmic. It's where obsessions, compulsions kind of come to the surface. So a lot of changes have been made in Ann Arbor in my life, but this Venus-Uranus midpoint is conjunct my midheaven here, on the west side of Ann Arbor, between Ann Arbor and Lansing here. So what's interesting is that when I was still in university in Ann Arbor, I got this job at the YMCA to coach children, to coach gymnastics. And Venus-Uranus, because Uranus is about kind of spontaneity, excitement, electricity, right? It's in the moment, and Venus is kind of pleasurable. Venus is attraction, things that we are attracted to, as we know. So Venus-Uranus is kind of the good excitement, things that excite you, things, song and dance, and in my opinion, children, because children are spontaneous. You cannot really predict children, let alone a group of children, right? So it's funny that I got this job in Ann Arbor coaching gymnastics, and then a while after that, for the past few months, I've been doing, I got another job that's further west from Ann Arbor in Dexter, which is around here, closer to this Venus-Uranus line, for coaching kids, gymnastics and parkour and the such. And I get paid even more for it. And then now this summer, I have another job that's even closer to the Venus-Uranus line.
Wow.
For taking kids out to nature, like kind of like a nature camp sort of deal. And I get paid even more for that. So it's just interesting that these job opportunities are drawing me closer to this line that's completely relevant to what the job actually is, which is kind of bringing excitement to children, kind of facilitating excitement in children, which children are kind of like already like an exciting thing. Children are excited. They bring me excitement. And so I get to use my career to experience this excitement from the kids, and then also to facilitate that. Which is another.
That's really cool.
I think it's another very appropriate example for the power of relocational astrology. Sometimes the environment pulls you towards certain energies. than you simply going to a place for that energy. Sometimes the energy of a place draws you in as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true. Do you find that midpoints are stronger than just a single planet aspecting one of the angles?
Anecdotally, yes. And also, if we think about the theory, David, when he talks about vibrational astrology, he's all about the multiple planets together, right? Multiple planet configurations, and the more planets are involved, the stronger it is. So by that logic, the midpoints are definitely more palpable, more it's definitely stronger than just a single planet aspecting an angle. And then even more so is if there are two midpoints together in a place. And that means that you have not only does that mean you have an isotrap in your chart, which is basically two midpoints that are resonating on each other, 4 planets together, but that means that all 4 of those planets are being activated in that one place, which is actually what you have, Starlene.
Yeah, I do.
And we can pull that up right now.
Yeah.
Right now you're in Florida.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And you're in Hollywood, Florida. Is that correct?
Yep.
So this is a great example because Starlene has this Sun Mercury midpoint and Mars Uranus midpoint going through where she lives, which is Hollywood, Florida. And let me make sure the dot actually shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that she has an isotrap, or these two midpoints are already resonating with each other in her natal chart. So Starlene's a very Sun, Mercury, Mars, Uranus kind of person. So what she likes to put out into the world is she's kind of a go-getter in terms of figuring out how things work and applying it in real time. She's kind of impatient about learning the mechanics of something, learning how breaking something apart just to learn about how it works, which I think is what she does with astrology. And she has a really kind of a detailed, very particular approach with VA. So, or Chris, would you like to add to that in terms of what Sun, Mercury, Mars,
with the Sun, Mercury, that's going to definitely be in the moment. That's very individuated too. So that has a quality of trying to bring out the individual, like, okay, what makes me unique is that's an element of it. Is that Sun Uranus? Because when you're in the moment, so the whole concept of being in the moment is like a moment without thought, as it were. So this is the pure me. This is me. Okay. This is not a calculated me. This is me. And then when you take the Sun Mercury that's there, I mean, this is the self, and this is communication. This is the mind. So it's the real me expressing themselves. It's the real me shining, the real me trying to communicate. It has that quality to it. So it in a sense, it helps you find your voice, I guess. It helps you find your true voice is how I would say it. Yeah. So a place like that would help you find your true voice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah, I think it would help her find her true voice, but at the same time spur her towards actually making that real through taking action.
Well, that's really what
Mars Uranus.
So well, the whole concept of in finding your true voice, it has to be expressed. Otherwise, you didn't find anything. Yeah, if you're not doing it, it's worthless. Like just to mentally know something, to mentally ascend to something is worthless, because it's like you've conceived something, but you haven't given birth to it. And so it's not for the world to share. Therefore, what is it? It's nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for Starlene, like this place, it highlights her Sun, Mercury, Mars, Uranus for her career, for her midheaven, because it's a red line. So basically, it's taking that talent of hers and putting it out into the world so people see it.
Yeah.
Do you think that's
So I
would you relate to that?
describe that. It can be put as career, but I give the more like general, it's what you aspire to. So it gives the concept of aspirations, because some people won't do it for their work, but it's what they're gonna put out in the world. Now we call that career,
Right.
but I wouldn't want to limit everybody to thinking it's what your job is or anything like that. It's really what you're aspiring. It's what you're aspiring to. It's what you want to make visible in the world. Like I want this to be my reputation. I want this to be what people know about me. You know.
Right.
So
yeah, I would agree.
Yeah,
with
that makes
Yeah,
sense. Yeah, that does make sense too, because I mean, it's what I do, and it's yes, I am an astrologer in my career, but I also it's a passion for me as well. So it's not just like, okay, I put the astrology way from 9 to 5, I do it, and it's not that. It's part of the lifestyle that I live and what I put out into the world as well. It's so that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder too. So Mars and Uranus aren't necessarily, if you were going to look at like Mars Uranus like square in someone's chart by transit or something, it might be a time of accidents or something of that sort. Do you look at Mars Uranus with my midheaven on this relocated chart as something like that?
I'd say because it's on the midheaven, it'd be because, for example, Mars Uranus on the ascendant might be more accident prone because it's more directly in your face. It's more Mars Uranus in your face, like kind of unpredictable energies and also unpredictable action. But then with the midheaven line, it would be less so accident prone, even though David does say, kind of puts that as a side note in his interpretation here. So if this energy is allowed to get out of balance, you can attract accidents and hostility as well. So try to harness your ambitions. So harness this energy that's around you to something that you want to devote yourself to.
In reality, you could put that on every single one. If it's out of balance, it's not going to be good. Like that's literally every energy dynamic. So, and that would be because I think there's within any energy, there is no like bad energy. It's all just how you manifest it. So like Mars Uranus, yes. Could it manifest as an accident? Yes, absolutely. If you're just going with it and you're not trying to bring balance to it, if you're not trying to get in control of that to the element you can, or it can be just a beautiful, spontaneous, allowing the true self to guide the expression, to guide the action. It's like when they talk about football, where you get to the point where you're no longer thinking about it, you're just responding. That's Mars Uranus. That's Mars Uranus in a positive way. That's Mars Uranus in a positive way. You've done it so many times that your body knows how now to respond when the response comes, but you're doing it without thought. It's just it's reaction. That's Mars Uranus. So for me, that's what ultimately in the positive way, it means that you will respond and you won't necessarily give a lot of thought to it. It'll just be, you'll know what to do, Yeah.
I can see that. I can see myself being like that, just action oriented in terms of that, and not necessarily. I mean, giving thought to things, but not necessarily thinking. And maybe that's the Sun Mercury as well. So not overthinking it.
Yeah. Football's classic. Like if you think, you're too late. If you thought about it, you're too late because you have to respond. You have to respond. It's just there's not a lot of conscious thought. You're already in there. You already are trained to know what to do. So the idea here would be the sun Mercury is already training you what to do. Then when the Mars Uranus kicks in, you just respond. Like you're not overthinking it. You're not needing to think a lot because you already had that pure sense of thought through the Sun Mercury. So that's all you're doing. Again, so what it's doing is it's promoting it's promoting a mind that's disciplined by the sun. So there's a certain element of discipline, and the discipline is giving it to the Mars Uranus, because Mars Uranus needs discipline. Otherwise, it's like it's wild. Okay, so it needs an element there. Yeah, and we all know that about Starlene too. So, so
I'm much better when I'm disciplined.
Yeah, and it's promoting it. It's promoting a sense of know what you need to know. You know, that's the Sun, Mercury. Learn what you need to learn, and then when you feel the ability to express it, you can just express it. Don't overthink it, because if you overthink it, you're going to get in trouble. Just go with it. Yeah.
Right.
So, Ethan, I'm curious what you think about these two yellow lines that are going up through. I can't see exactly what
Yeah, there's
planet it is.
There's a Mercury 9 vibe, 100 degrees. That's like a 9 vibration. And there's a Uranus 9 vibe as well, 160 degrees. So
oh, interesting. So that's
so 9 vibration is kind of, David describes it as harmony, but it's basically what you want in your environment, like harmony with the people around you. So 9th vibration is actually very important when it comes to relocation and astrology, because you want to connect with your environment. You want to feel that you belong. With any 9 vibe aspect to a planet in a place, it's gonna bring a different sense of how you belong to the place. David says he likes it when people have either a moon 9 vibe aspect or a Venus 9 vibe aspect, because the moon, it's like a familiarity with the place that makes you feel like you belong, whether it's like, oh, the people are family, whether you actually have family there, or your friends become like your family, or you're connected to the heritage. With Venus 9 vibe, it's more like, wow, this place is just beautiful. There are things here that I just really appreciate the aesthetics of. David says when people have a 9 vibe aspect, Venus 9 vibe aspect in a place, and they have a house, they usually have flowers, because it's just the physical beauty that attracts them to the place, where that place expresses their ideals for physical beauty. But it gets even more nuanced when we see the other planets 9 vibe aspect to a place. For example, Starlene has Mercury 9 vibe aspecting Hollywood, pretty much exact, which that means that communications flow smoothly between her and everyone else in that place. She feels that she can communicate well with people, and interactions with people around her just go smoothly. And she feels like through her interactions, through her communications, through the words being exchanged, she feels that she belongs in the place. And
I could
that
definitely
might
see
be an
that.
aspect of what draws her to Hollywood. Do you feel that to be true, Starlene?
Yeah, I definitely see that. And I've lived here most of my life, even though I wasn't born here. So it's interesting that I've always been that person. She talks a lot. She communicates a lot. But I don't know if that's me or even just the place that I'm at. It's a curious question. But, I definitely can see where I am able to communicate easily with people around me, for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's interesting. So, cool. Thank you for that. What about Christopher? Let's look at Christopher and where he lives. He doesn't live. One of the things that's important too to think about is when you are moving more east to west from your city that you live in or that you were born in. So if you move more east to west, the chart changes a lot more than if you were to stay in the same place. You wouldn't be relocating it then. But Christopher's moved all the way from, what is it, Washington or California you were born?
Well, I was born in California. Yeah, I moved all the way across the country. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're like on the other side of the United States than you were. So he's also in Florida, in Jacksonville.
Right. So I guess, what should we look at? Should we look at the California side before he moved? Or I guess we're in Jacksonville now.
Yeah, we're in Jacksonville. That's going to be the more impactful thing, because it is. So
Right.
that's where all my family was raised. So although everybody was born in Olympia, Washington, but this is where we've been for the past 24 years. So
right.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Where I got
The first thing I see in Jacksonville is a lot of focus. I feel that. A lot of, because especially with Moon 5 vibe, 108 is a 5 vibe aspect. Moon 5 vibe would be kind of like a quiet creativity, like kind of being able to sit and to be creative and to kind of have like organic thinking. And I feel like that's apt because Chris has been basically grinding in his studies and trying to figure out the meaning of vibe. Is that okay to say, Chris?
Yeah. So, but I would say, okay, so one of the statements you made, like you said, an organic feeling. We actually moved here to be a part of an organic church.
Really?
Yes. That's what it was called.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So we moved here to be a part of everybody lived in the same neighborhood. Everybody bought houses in the same neighborhood. That's why we moved here.
Wow.
Yeah. So I gave up my business. I gave up everything we had built up in Olympia, and we started over. With 8 little kids. We started over brand new to be a part of this different kind of church, this different kind of organic community.
Right. That's fascinating because 5 vibe is organic. Or 5 as like that's just one of the best descriptions for it, and that's just crazy how literally it translated.
Yep, organic church,
being part of an organic church, and like the moon is kind of like your sense. A lot of people say it's your sense of home because it's what you're familiar with. So in a sense, your church should be your home, right?
Like, and that's why it was called the Organic Home Church.
Wow, that blows my mind. That blows my mind.
Yep. That's why we moved all the way across the country.
Wow.
I mean, because if this stuff works, then it better actually work. But it does really shock me when it works so well like that. It's almost like it's a direct translation.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's fascinating.
Yep.
but
we literally, again, coming from where we were, I had read a book by the author that was starting this thing, and my wife had not even read the book yet, and I call her up one day and I say, what do you think about moving to Jacksonville, Florida? Now, our youngest was not even 1. All right. And the oldest is 8 or not, no, 9. The oldest is 9. That's it. And her answer was, yeah, great. When are we moving? And we moved in 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So this was a very fast, like, yep, we're going.
So she had that intuition that Jacksonville, Florida would be that place for that mission.
Yep.
Wow. And you've been there 24 years, you said?
24 years. Yep.
Wow.
Wow.
And that's fitting too, because it's got the Saturn 9 vibe, which is Saturn. It's like doing something important for the people around you. And that seems pretty fitting for that exact mission as well.
Well, I came to be a part of the training they had here. So I was being trained in that particular ministry, and then we went all around the world teaching and doing different things with that.
Right.
So I was a part of an organic home church where I was being trained. Does that fit the planets?
Yeah, that really does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really serious because Saturn brings that seriousness. Saturn brings that real impact. Like, how can I really bring a meaningful impact to people? And it seems like, I mean, you went around the world with this ministry.
Yeah. But what you think you're doing isn't always going to be what it ends up being. It will be what you have in your heart, but it might not be the way. So I came to be a part of an organic Christian fellowship to really begin to know who we are and how to express things from a real sort of inner knowing and inner spirit basis. But I find that doing vibrational astrology and what I do now to be more impactful than what I was doing then. And I'm still doing the exact same thing in essence. I just use a different language and I have a different style and a different means, but it's the same thing.
Right. So
Right.
do you feel
Impacting people.
right, like where you are, you're chasing that impact, chasing like how you can be as big of an
100%.
impact.
100%. Yep. Why do you think I have to freaking do this stupid book? So, I mean, it's not because it's anything I really want to do in that way. It's like, no, that's why like Saturn is not like an ooey gooey, oh, how awesome feeling, you know? It's just, okay, yeah, this is what you got to do. This is what, it's a responsibility. It has these dynamics to it. It cuts down to the bone, as if cutting down to the bone is nice. It's not. It gets to the truth of the matter. But that's what it does. That's why Jacksonville has never been oh, I get such warm fuzzies here. No, it's not. It's like, okay, you need to get done what you need to get done. And that's what's happened here. So it's been effective.
Yeah. And it's powered by that Pluto trine midheaven too. It's like you kind of got the power of Pluto, that obsessive drive, like with that mission. You're tapping into that here, which I can totally see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not. Now, I live in a really nice place. I'm right on the water. I've got a boat, which I don't use enough. We've got the pool, which I don't swim in. I have all the things where I could totally, completely, 1000% chill and do nothing. They all just sit around me while I sit here behind my freaking computer working.
Yeah.
Yeah. You do what you
but
do.
I think, because 9 vibe kind of, it's how you feel that you belong to the place. So I think that Saturn 9 vibe, because you're actually bringing that impact, it makes it so that you feel that you belong. Because other people might feel that they belong because, oh, they have a beautiful backyard with the Venus 9 vibe, or because they have a lot of great friends with the Moon 9 vibe. But with Chris, he's chasing that meaning, that meaningful impact in people's lives around him, and he feels that he belongs because he's actually bringing that meaningful impact.
Yeah.
So I think
well,
that's
and
cool.
ultimately, I mean, to tell you the truth, the idea of the meaningful impact, I expect after I'm dead. So I'm looking to the future. I'm looking, as we talked earlier, I'm looking to the future of VA. I'm looking to the future of when this can be when it can be more open and people can actually take advantage of this a lot more. And so that's why you have to write, you have to do certain things in order for the future. And not just live like, do I think in the present it's going to be like a massive, that we can really get it to where we can see that it can make the impact it can? Because we all know that if you put some of these concepts and ideas in the hands of 16 and 17-year-olds that they're hearing these things, is this going to impact their lives in a positive way? Yes, it is. Like these things can really help people understand who they are, know who they are, be who they are. It's so effective. I have not found any other means that is as effective. But you have to get people past a lot of their sort of prejudices, their misunderstandings, that and so that takes time. You have to know that takes time. And to be able to communicate it, write about it, do what you have to do, realizing that you may not make an impact in your life. And so me, being Christian and looking at people like Jesus or Paul. So Paul, he writes a few letters to churches that literally is read by a few hundred people during his life. Okay. During his life, at best, actually a few hundred people didn't even read it because very few people could read. So you're dealing with a handful of people. The guy dies alone. Okay. In a cell. He's killed all alone. They pretty much abandoned him. Now, has the Apostle Paul making an impact on the world?
Yeah.
Did he in his lifetime?
No.
No.
Wow.
You know, so you just it doesn't matter. You've got to do what you feel you need to do, and you've got to be Saturn, and you've got to be committed to it, you know, without necessarily seeing, the response. You take a Jesus who's a Jew who dies that nobody knows. Nobody knows who he is, you know? Like if Paul doesn't really talk about him in the way he does, no one will ever know who he is. No one would ever talk about him. Yet today they're talking about him all over the world. Okay? So how does that happen for a guy that never writes a thing down? You have very little. I mean, so we don't know the impact we can make just from the littlest things, you know? And now we have the internet. You know, here we are doing a recording. You're talking about, astro maps. And do you know who you're going to impact? Nope. Do you know that maybe someone looks at it, someone sees it, and makes a massive decision in the education of their life? And it not only changes the course of their life, it changes the course of the world. Like they become
Yeah.
this because of it. Like you don't know how you impact people. You don't know.
Yeah.
You just have to be faithful to do what you feel to do, and you
Mhm.
do it. So it's like, yeah. So, I appreciate you sharing this. I appreciate you bringing this to our attention and wanting to share this with everyone, because it really is good. And you're right. It does work. It helps you understand, like, okay, what are the things I'm being influenced by, and then you can make conscious decisions. So, and that's really important, to make decisions consciously and not just
Mhm.
because you can make the right decisions unconsciously. We do it all the time, but to make them consciously is a lot more powerful,
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's one thing that I really hope to. One kind of impact that I really hope to bring is to get people out of like kind of like the negative places, because some people are are at places where the environment isn't helping them, and that's what I realize. I see it in my friends. Sometimes they move to a place and their environment isn't helping them. But I think here, using this relocational astrology, it kind of gives it tells you why. It gives kind of the reasoning as to why that place is not helping them. In some
Yep.
places, I think it's 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 worth moving from, just to
Yep.
improve your life and to get what you deserve and what you need.
Yep.
So I hope to bring that impact to people as well, to kind of ward off that, to give people what they need and to get people out of what they don't need.
Yeah.
So
And that's good, because that's
Mhm.
really what is important, is to make conscious decisions. I mean, that's important. I mean, I could look at the chart and say, oh, am I going to really relax here? Is this going to be just a place where I feel the warm and fuzzies and I'm just enjoyed to come back to? No. But is that what I want out of life? Or am I desiring something more? Am I more missionally based? Am I wanting to try to accomplish something? Well, then this is a great place to be, you know? So but then I can know that. So I can know that and not be frustrated by, oh, why is it this way? Or why? No, you've got to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So, you're just changing people's perspective. You shift people's perspective on something and they can be going through just the most horrible thing. And you tell them this and they're like, oh, yeah, that is what I want. And now they feel good about it. What changed? Only their attitudes, only their perspective. That's it. Nothing else
Right.
changed. And yet they feel wonderful now. So it's like, it's a very powerful thing when you're making the decision and you know why you're making the decision and you know what it means. Like I said, if you look over at New Orleans, it's nice. It's way better. I mean, look at all that Venus over there,
Yeah.
Jupiter, Venus, all these things going. Yeah, it's awesome. I love it over there.
Yeah. Jupiter 9 vibe. Yeah, I'm sure everyone loves Chris when he's there.
It's so great. They asked me to move.
Really?
I was they were like, oh, we need an astrologer like you here. You could do really well. Your business would be great here. And yeah, of course it would.
Right.
And it would be fun and I would love it.
Mhm.
But is it going to make the impact that I need? Nope.
Mhm.
I don't think so.
Right. Right. And like that, Chris makes the decision that he wants the he wants the Saturn 9 vibe instead of the Jupiter 9 vibe.
Yep. Although Jupiter's way more fun.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be
Right.
getting this freaking book done. That's the truth.
Right. And the impact that would last generations, potentially, you know,
Yep.
who knows how long, may
Yep.
not still be there. So yeah, that
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense. You want to
Yep.
have to, yeah,
Yep.
very interesting.
Mhm.
Well, this was really great. Ethan, thank you so much for sharing this with us. And I really look forward to seeing where you go with this. I think relocation astrology has a lot to offer people, and maybe especially in the sense of VA, it's not really used a lot. You don't see it, a bunch of people doing it. So I think this is really a great niche for you to explore, especially since it resonates with you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for letting me share with you
You're
guys.
welcome.
Yeah, awesome.
You're welcome. Great. Okay, so we'll wrap up. Thanks, everybody. Again, if you want to check out where Ethan is at online, I'm going to leave links below, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.